Coming in at the bottom is Nellie Bertram, a character who from her first introduction in the Search Committee episodes was definitely not a very memorable character, which is why I found it very odd that the show brought her back later on in Season 8 and Season 9. Although they attempted to make Nellie this new, funny character in The Office, overall I found her to be the complete opposite and often wondered why the show gave her so much screen time in the later seasons. Number 28 is Clark Green and Pete Miller. I decided to put these characters together since they were first introduced together as the new guys in The Office in Season 9, and that's really all they're remembered for. Besides the fact that Pete and Aaron later start a relationship, nothing really interesting happens with these characters who are just not very interesting to begin with. Number 27 is Todd Packer, a guy who's hated by pretty much everyone in the office except for Michael and Kevin, until they eventually dislike him as well. The character didn't receive much screen time on the show, but the few times that he did were mostly very cringeworthy moments that made him a very dislikable character that I only wished would stop coming back. At number 26 is D'Angelo Vickers. Obviously, D'Angelo was only on the show for a few episodes as a sort of temporary replacement for Michael, but in that short period, it was obvious how much worse the show was with D'Angelo. I didn't find him to be extremely dislikable, but his weak and annoying presence in those few episodes ranks him near the bottom of the list. Number 25 is Gabe Lewis. Now, Gabe had some funny moments once introduced to the show, with some pathetic and cringeworthy scenes, but for the most part, I felt that the show didn't gain anything with his addition later on, and he was just not a very memorable character, as he quietly disappears in the later seasons without anyone really mentioning it. Number 24 is Holly Flax. Holly was created for the sole purpose of being Michael's soulmate, and while significant for the plot, I always considered her to be a slightly annoying and uninteresting character who was the cause of Michael's departure from The Office. And truthfully, I never found her and Michael's relationship very captivating, putting her at number 24. Number 23 is Karen Filippelli. Many people hate Karen for keeping Jim and Pam apart throughout Season 3. But besides that fact, she was one of the more normal characters in The Office that, like Holly, played her part well for the storyline, but in my opinion was a more likable and relatable character. At number 22 is Roy Anderson. Right from Season 1, you knew that Pam would eventually ditch Roy for Jim. But for me, I thought Roy was wronged more than he actually deserved, and can honestly place more blame on Pam for how the situation turned out for him. For me, he wasn't a very likable nor a very dislikable character. Number 21 is Charles Minor. Charles was on the show for only a few episodes, but it was a nice addition to see a character who is the complete opposite of Michael interact with all the characters in The Office, especially Michael and Jim. His strict and serious demeanor made for a few funny interactions, but as a viewer, I can only root against Charles in support of Michael during the Michael Scott Paper Company episodes. Number 20 is Robert California. I know there are a lot of Office fans who would rank Robert at the very bottom of the list, but I found that the changes he brought to the show were not necessarily a bad thing. He presented a dark and creepy personality that many viewers disliked, but I considered it to be a funny addition. I do agree, however, that his character may have gotten a bit too creepy later on, and that he lasted on the show longer than he should have. Number 19 is Meredith Palmer. Meredith was a character that I felt more sorry for than considered very funny. Her alcoholism, homeless lifestyle, and very unfortunate encounters like getting hit by Michael's car and attacked by a bat made her a memorable but not a very relatable nor likable character. Number 18 is Jan Levinson. From the beginning, I considered Jan and Michael's relationship to create some of the funniest interactions in the show. Her clear annoyance of Michael and slow progression to madness made for some key memorable moments, most notably in the dinner party episode. And out of all of Michael's girlfriends, I believe Jan was the most memorable one on the show, putting her at number 18. Number 17 is David Wallace. Now, David was a minor character on the show, but he definitely provided some of the funniest interactions with Michael Scott. In dealing with Michael's stupidity, it was hilarious to see his stunned facial expressions and overwhelming patience, putting him at number 17. Number 16 is Phyllis Vance. Phyllis plays the quiet and fat old lady in The Office who isn't a very funny character, but in my opinion is one of the more iconic background characters that comes to mind. To many viewers, she's a large part of what makes the show so relatable, as we too may work with or know someone just like Phyllis. Number 15 is Ryan Howard. Ryan is a difficult character to describe, as he went through many changes throughout the show. Beginning as the quiet temp to the vice president of sales, to then a sort of loser who gets rides from his mom, I found all versions of Ryan to be entertaining and consider him as another iconic character. Number 14 is Angela Martin, the crazy cat lady in The Office. Angela definitely does some sketchy things throughout the show, but I felt that her evil personality made her one of the more intriguing characters who was actually at the center of many major and entertaining plot lines as well. She provides a different presence in The Office that I think overall was a great addition. Number 13 is Erin Hannon. Erin joined The Office in Season 5, and for me, I thought she immediately fit right in with the Office vibe and amongst the other characters. She's as stupid as Kevin and has that similar likable trait. While some viewers find her annoying, I thought she was a funny addition who made the show even better. Number 12 is Toby Flenderson. As probably the quietest character in The Office, it may surprise some of you that Toby is ranked so high on the list. But it's because of his reserved manner that makes his interactions with Michael probably some of the funniest on the show. He's not the funniest guy by himself, but he's another one of those relatable characters that are a great fit in The Office. Number 11 is Kelly Kapoor. In my opinion, Kelly is the funniest female character in The Office with some of the best one-liners. She plays the typical dramatic white girl in the show, but somehow makes her annoying personality likable and overall just very hilarious. Number 10 is Oscar Martinez. Oscar is one of the more normal characters in The Office, or a member of the Coalition for Reason as he put it, and his attempts to display reasoning in the crazy office environment largely relate him to the audience's perspective. While not an openly funny character, he's more often the butt of the office jokes and is a part of hilarious storylines with other characters like Michael and Angela that easily places him in the top 10. Number 9 is Stanley Hudson. As a background character, Stanley doesn't receive much screen time in the show, but he's someone whose personality, rather than hilarious punchlines, makes him such a great character. His presence alone gives off that mean and lazy old man vibe in The Office that without would make the show somewhat incomplete in my opinion. Number 8 is Daryl Philbin, a character who I feel went through many positive changes throughout the show. He begins as a sort of chill yet serious warehouse worker to being part of the office workplace where he becomes another hilarious and iconic character. And as the seasons went on, we saw Daryl get even more involved in the show, starting a band with Andy and joining Athlete with Jim, all while becoming even more hilarious. Number 7 is Creed Bratton. Creed is probably the most random and mysterious character, as we never know exactly what he does in The Office, and neither really does he. But it's without a doubt that Creed provided some of the funniest moments in the show, as it seemed that all of his appearances led to some funny punchline or story of his criminal background that makes him one of the best characters in the show. Number 6 is Andy Bernard. Now, it's hard to ignore those last 2 seasons when the show basically ruined Andy's character, but besides that fact, Andy is one of the most loved characters who was somehow able to transform his highly dislikable and annoying character in Season 3 to the quirky, loserish Cornell grad that turned him into one of the show's best characters. And for a time being after Michael's departure, he was the show's main character, being as much involved in the plot as even Jim, Pam, and Dwight. If it weren't for the last 2 seasons, Andy would definitely be a top 5 character. To start off the top 5 is Kevin Malone. Similar to Creed or Kelly, Kevin is another character with some iconic punchlines in the show. Combined with his hilarious appearance, frog like voice, and clueless personality, there's really nothing to hate about Kevin. And not to mention that as the seasons went on, Kevin seemingly got more and more stupid, but even funnier at the same time, making him a top 5 character. Number 4 is Pam Beesly. Surprisingly, Pam is actually one of the most hated characters in The Office, as some viewers felt she was a very boring and uninteresting character, especially in the later seasons. While I do agree that Pam is not very funny, her character is one of the most important, as her and Jim's relationship makes up over half of the entire show. And for it to last so long, there's no doubt that Pam deserves some of the credit. She easily has the most meaningful relationships on the show, obviously with Jim, but also with Michael and even Dwight to a lesser extent. Number 3 is Jim Halpert. I would argue that Jim is the most essential character in The Office, even more than Michael. From a certain perspective, The Office could be about the story of Jim Halpert, a guy who initially has a crush on a receptionist, tries to win her over but gets rejected, eventually does get with her and eventually marries her, has some kids, and then moves on from Dunder Mifflin in pursuit of his dreams. He's the most normal guy in The Office, the one all viewers relate to, but also one of the funniest characters that drive the show with his relationships with Dwight, Michael, and obviously Pam. Number 2 is Dwight Schrute. The Salesman of the Month is one of the show's funniest, most unique characters by far. I see his relationship with Jim and Michael being just as important as the Jim and Pam relationship in the show, and no matter what scene he's in, Dwight just never fails to be hilarious. To put it simply, Dwight is the best, most memorable character on the show, right behind our number 1 spot, Michael Scott. Without Michael, the show would never have come close to what it's known for today. We saw in seasons 8 and 9, when Michael did leave the show, just how different it became, and how obvious that the most vital piece of the show was missing. In my opinion, he's the funniest character in The Office, with the most memorable moments and relationships with every single character. There's little more to say other than he's the undisputed number 1 character from The Office.